This lecture segment covers the use of conditional compilation to protect against multiple header file inclusion. You've probably seen lines like #ifndef myfile_h at the start of C header files, and this segment will explain what those lines do and give you a deeper understanding of conditional compilation. So first let's understand the problem. If we look at ifdefs2.c here in the diagram, this one includes ifdefs2.h twice. And that content is over here, of course. Now imagine for the moment that ifdefs2.h has only line 3 in it. Such double inclusion would repeat the line 3 typedef of ushort, resulting in a compiler error. Let me move that down so it's a little more visible. Now you can't repeat a typedef twice, so you'd get a compiler error. Now, would this error really happen in practice? No, not quite as shown. Most people don't accidentally include the same file twice directly, but it's very common for a C file to include many different header files, and those header files in turn may include yet other headers, and in many cases may include the same other header file, thus causing that other file to be included multiple times via recursive inclusion. If you include both A.h and B.h, and each of those in turn includes standardIO.h, then you'll get 2 includes of standardIO.h, absent any correction. So how do we prevent this? The common practice is to use the pattern on lines 1, 2, and 4 of ifdefs.h. The preprocessor directive ifndef on line 1 is the opposite of ifdef. It includes the source lines between it and the matching endif only if the condition it tests is false. So just as a quick check and to be sure that's understood, rewrite ifndef test, let's say, using #if. Coming back from a pause, answers in the transcript, #if bang defined test. Should be pretty straightforward. Now, the conditionally included code in ifdefs2.h is thus included only if flag define ifdefs2h is undefined. And line 2 defines ifdefs2_h. So once the code is included, ifdefs2_h will thenceforth be defined. This is easiest to see in the expanded version of ifdefs.c shown down here on lines 11 through 22. The ifndef block is repeated twice because of inclusion, but by the second repetition, ifdefs2h has been defined. So, as shown on lines 23 through 28, the final result, what you really get is just the first block, with the second one omitted by conditional compilation. Any inclusion of the conditionally compiled code automatically blocks any later inclusions, since the first inclusion #defines the flag that blocks the rest. So, by convention, almost all C programmers convert the name of the header file to all caps, turn the dot to an underscore since flag defines can't have dot in their name, and then use the resultant flag define as a guard to automatically remove any repeats of the header. Here's question 2. It's important that each header file have a unique flag define for this purpose. Basing the flag define off of the header file name accomplishes this, but it's easy to mess it up by yank and paste coding from one header file to another, forgetting to adjust the flag define. If a C file includes 2 headers, header 1.h, let's say, and header 2.h, but both use header 1_h as their flag define, what happens? And does the order in which they're included matter? Coming back from a pause, the answer is that the second header to be included effectively loses. It will be silently removed by conditional compilation, since the first header will have defined header 1_h. This can be a maddening bug, since the effect is that all declarations provided by the second header file appear to be missing, despite the fact that the file is apparently included. Indeed, one include may have worked just fine on its own and then fail when the other include with the matching flag define is inserted above it. The new arrival is just fine, but the old include that follows it suddenly fails to work. Now, the three-line solution is admittedly a little awkward, this if and def define end if thing, and there is an alternative. One may simply add the line pound pragma once. Thus, at the top of any header file, and the preprocessor will automatically drop second and later includes of the file. No need for messy if and defs and potential flag define clashes. Indeed, pound pragma once will also not even open the include file a second time, speeding compilation. The pound pragma, by the way, pragma from pragmatic, the pound pragma directive is a catch-all for special commands directing the preprocessor or compiler in performing their work. Depending on what follows the pound pragma, you can adjust all manner of subtle options in compilation, silence selected warnings, etc. It's a powerful and useful directive. That's the good news. The bad news is that the options following pound pragma are, by design, different for each compiler. It's meant to be a non-standard way of slipping special commands into C source. If you move your source to a different C compiler, pound pragmas that worked on the prior compiler may not on the new one. They won't cause errors. Every C compiler simply ignores pound pragmas that it doesn't recognize, but they won't work on all compilers. Now, pound pragma once comes as close to a universal pragma as any. Practically all compilers recognize it, so you'll find some shops that use it. But there was a brief period in the late 90s when some compilers that formerly recognized it temporarily decided to deprecate it, quote-unquote, giving warnings that it was a feature to be phased out. There were really no good reasons for this, and they changed their minds, so pound pragma once remains universal for all practical purposes. But many shops avoid its use because of that history, and frankly because the tried-and-true if and def approach has been around for 40 years. Now, that's all we'll say about this rather arcane corner of C, but note it's a good case study of the vicissitudes of having almost standard features. A language feature that is clearly non-standard is easy to avoid or use only in special situations. One that's universal is easy to rely on, but one that is almost but not quite universal can be worse than either extreme because it becomes a sort of half-standard that some programmers follow and others don't.